Hey everybody, Jacob here at SDR Motorsports. Today we're going to be going over the install of your Polaris Xpedition bed rack system. We're just going to go over what parts are going to come in your box here. So you should have a driver and a passenger side upright. Should have 2 of these crossbows, and you should have 3 of these shorter braces, as well as 2 bags of hardware. One of them is going to be smaller hardware for actually assembling the rack, and the other bag of hardware is going to be some fabricated hardware that's all larger, and that's going to be for mounting the rack to the bed of the car. All right, so once you've confirmed that you've got all your parts and all your hardware, we'll go ahead and start the assembly. So grab one of your uprights and one of your crossbows, and that crossbow is going to slide just into the upright, just about to where they butt up. And then you can go ahead and grab some of that hardware, get those holes lined up, and get a couple of bolts started. So then once you've got those 4 started, you'll go ahead and grab that second crossbow, install it to the other side of this upright here, get those installed, and then slide right onto the other side and put on that other set of upright. All right, so once you have the crossbows installed into the uprights, it should look a little something like this. The next step in the process is going to be to go ahead and grab your 3 front to back braces, and we'll go ahead and get those installed. So they're going to lay out in 3 specific spots in the rack so that they line up with the optional floor kit. One is going to go right here in this center slot, and then the other 2 are going to go in these 2 outside slots here. And they'll attach with those 2 bolt holes there. So we'll go ahead and grab some hardware and get those thrown in. Just a little tip here, I like to put the nut side of the bolt on the inside of this brace, just so that you can get to it with an impact a little bit easier and take some, save some time. Once you've got the nuts and bolts started on the one side, just go ahead and flip the rack around and get them started on the other side. So once you've got it to this point, if all you purchased was the base bed rack, then you'll be finished. You can go ahead and tighten up all of your hardware and get it thrown into the bed. There is a wide section of the bed rack and a narrow section of the bed rack. That wide section is going to go towards the cab of the vehicle, so towards the front of the car. It'll fit both ways, it just does not line up with the outsides of the bed that way, so you'll want to make sure you put it the correct way into the bed. All right, so this is going to be the tire extension for the Xpedition bed rack. Basically, when you pull it out of the box, all you should get is the actual extension wing itself. You'll get a bag of some larger 5/16 hardware and some smaller hardware that's going to be for mounting the wing to the actual rack itself. Like we said in the bed rack install video, there is a narrow side of the base upright and a wide side of the base upright. That narrow side is going to be the rear. So the tire wing is going to go on this side of the extension. So you can go ahead and double check that that's the side that it's going to go on. Make sure that everything lines up nice. And then you can go ahead and grab a couple pieces of hardware and set those in either side to get it started. After getting everything bolted up, you may notice that you have a couple extra pieces of hardware. We do include extra hardware in all the hardware packs, so no big deal if you've got some extra laying on the table when you're done. Once your upright hardware is installed all loose, you can grab that bag of smaller hardware, and this is actually going to go into the back of that crossbow at the back of the extension wing here. I like to go ahead and line those pieces of hardware up with the pieces of hardware installed for the front to back supports. So you can go ahead and grab those out of the bag. And kind of the same thing like we did with the front to back supports. I like to run those from inside this channel out so that the nut is under the wing. It just makes it a little easier to get to with a socket or an impact, just to tighten everything up and save some time. All right, so once you've got that smaller 1/4 inch hardware in the back of the wing, if that's where you're stopping with your install, then you can go ahead and tighten all that up and then get this thrown on the car. We're gonna go ahead and continue on. We're gonna install the flat floor and the basket kit to finish up the options on this guy. All right, so now we're gonna go over the install of the floor and basket kit for the Xpedition bed rack. What should come in that package is the flat floor itself. You should have a front panel, 2 of these corner braces, and a left and right side basket, or left and right basket side. And then you should also have 1 big old bag of hardware. All right, so there is a correct and an incorrect way to install the floor. Just with the way that the bed is shaped, the uprights are actually out of square. You'll notice that also if you look down at the base of the uprights, there's a wide side and a narrow side. If you put it on wrong, all of the bolt holes are gonna line up, but you'll notice on your corners, one side is gonna sit in and the other side is gonna stick past. If you put it on that way, it's no big deal. All you gotta do is just go ahead and flip it over, align your holes again, and you'll notice that the outside edges are a lot happier. Go ahead and just leave that set there for now. And we can throw in a couple of those 1/4 20 bolts that'll drop through the front to back braces that are now underneath. Go ahead and drop 2 in the outside, 2 in the center, and 2 in the other side for now, and get those snugged up, and then we can start putting the actual basket sides on. All right, so once you have that hardware loosely installed into the braces underneath, we can go ahead and do some of the surrounding hardware. It is important that you don't just go around putting a bunch in, because the basket does use some of them. So you can go ahead on the wide side of the rack, you can drop 1 in both of those corners down into the upright, and it won't be in the way as of current. And then this whole front edge, you can go ahead and space them through. So if you've got 1 on the outside, we'll throw 1 there in the center. And 1 in between it. Same on the other side, and you can go ahead and mirror that hardware on this back edge as well. Same for the other side. Don't get the back corners. And mirror your front and back. Then we can go ahead and get nuts and washers loosely installed on the bottom side of all that hardware. So once all of that floor hardware is loosely installed, we can go ahead and install the front part of the basket and get it installed. So we'll go ahead and grab a couple 1/4 20s and install that into the front edge, or the wide edge, of that front crossbow, and get a couple pieces of hardware in there to hold it up for you. and then you can go ahead and evenly spread in 2 more pieces of hardware. Put them in the right way. So one right there on that side of those slots, and one on the other side. Get those nuts and washers on there. And then we'll move on to the sides. So the side panels are actually going to run with this angled side towards the front of the car, leaning forward. They'll match up with that front side that we installed already. So you'll go ahead and grab another 2 pieces of hardware, and you can go ahead and pre-install those into the side, and go ahead and drop those down into the matching holes in the floor. And grab 2 more pieces of hardware and run those into the front piece of basket through the side piece. All right, so the last step in your assembly portion of the basket is going to be these steel corner braces. We make these out of steel, so that way if you're using a tire tie down or anything and you do hook up to here, this is going to be one of the stronger mounting points. You're not going to worry about bending or flexing this mount. This guy is going to go ahead and tuck right in here to the corners, and you'll see why we made a big emphasis on not installing any of this hardware earlier, just because it's going to get in the way of installing these. So set those in there, and just like always, run your hardware through and get it all snugged up. Once everything is all installed, once you have this last corner brace in, you can go through the entire rack and begin to final tighten all of your hardware and snug everything up. It really does help to fully install whatever you're putting together on the rack before it gets tightened. Just helps it pull into square and go on the car a little bit nicer. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and install the Molle panels on the Xpedition bed rack now. You'll notice that in your package comes 2 mirrored versions of it with the arrows facing opposite ways. They are going to mount towards the front of the car, so at this angled side of the rack, with this thicker bar being at the top. So they'll go ahead and they'll set in the rack this way. And grab a couple pieces of your hardware. And then you'll just grab your nuts and washers and get everything all tightened up on them. All right, so last step, we're gonna go ahead and install the MaxTrax adapters. You do need the Molle panels to run these. It does attach to that. There is a bunch of holes in here. They are a universal part. They work with our Ranger bed rack as well. So there's a couple different places that you can mount them, but where we recommend mounting them, and what's gonna be the easiest to do is if you take this guy right here and you line that up with that center arrow, that will line up this top row of holes and this lower row of holes. So we can go ahead and take that up there, line that right on our arrow, and go ahead and slap in some hardware. Let that hang. And then nuts and washers on the back side, tighten them up. Then you can go ahead, when you get your MaxTrax, you can slide your pins into here, throw your wrench on the back side and get your pins all tight, slap your MaxTrax on, and you're ready to go. All right, so now that you've got the bed rack sat in, again, it's a little bit easier to tell once the tire wing is on, but wide part of the rack towards the front, narrow part of the rack towards the rear. You can go ahead and get it all lined up with the holes in the bed. And you can take these fabricated bolts that we've got here. It takes a little bit of wiggling, but you go ahead and you'll slide those through the track and into the rack itself. There's gonna be 4 of these on each side. You may have to wiggle the rack just a little bit to get everything to drop in. But you'll go ahead and slide all 8 of those in. And then same thing. Washer, nut, tighten it down, and you're all good. All right, so once you have all of the hardware in there loose, you'll want to go ahead and align this back edge of the rack flush with the edge of the factory railing. And when you tighten the uprights to the bed, you want to go ahead and start with the inside ones. That's going to pull the upright flush to the side before it pulls it down. Otherwise, you might end up with a little gap here and then pulling it in if you tighten the top first. All right, so once you've got it all up here, if you are throwing your spare tire up top, we do have E-track mounts in the floor, so you can get some E-track tie downs. And those just slip right in. We've got a couple different ones this way, depending on how big your tire is. So we'll start just throwing it in the back. Come over to this side, we'll do the same thing. All right, so you can throw that tire up here. We do sell these 3-point speed straps that are kind of meant specifically for this. So they adjust just like the harness. You can I like to set the ring up to where when this is tight, it's not gonna sit on my wheel. So I set that on the tire, get everything all snugged up, ratchet it down, and then you're good to go. That's the finished bed rack and all the accessories.